Welcome to Spark Faith with me, Dr. Kris Sargent. This show is about renewed health, rooted in truth, and restored by grace. What does finding health look like for you? Do you have a vision for your future self and a way to get there? I'm Dr. Kris, and after 33 years in functional medicine and a lifelong journey through brain health, weight loss, hormones, mindset, and faith, I know that real transformation doesn't come from willpower or white-knuckling your way to wellness. It comes from gratitude, honoring your body as the temple that God created. This show is about body stewardship, not shame. It's about rewiring your mindset, your metabolism, and your spirit to find lasting health without the grind. I'll help you cut through the noise, see opportunities instead of obstacles, and finally live the healthy, purposeful life you were created for. Let's spark faith and transformation together. Spark Faith starts now. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Spark Faith Show. I am Dr. Kris Sargent, and today, this is not by accident. I don't want this to stop you from listening. However, I know that we happen to be right before the holidays. Now, if you really think about it, there is always a holiday right around the corner. So we are talking about the fall holidays, the fall and winter ones. However, this could be July 4th. It could be any particular birthday, whatever. This episode is going to be for you. And it is called the Cortisol Hijack. And so it may not even have anything to do with the holidays. They just may exacerbate the problem. So we are going to talk about the one hormone that can absolutely sabotage your metabolism faster than a plate of holiday cookies, right? And that is cortisol. So I know that your schedules are tight and you have some expectations and obligations. However, today we are going to take this tagline very seriously because we are going to say throughout the show, peace isn't passive, it's physiological. So that is where we're going to start. And this topic matters for everyone, not just women over 40. So if you have never listened to the show and you're like, oh, this is just a menopause show, maybe a little bit, but it really pertains to pretty much everybody right now. I think that the triggers that I am about to throw out there can really just encompass so many times in our life. And it can come along with hard seasons. And we've been talking a lot about hard seasons right now and over the last couple of episodes. So let's here's a little trigger warning, but I just want to see if any of this resonates with you. Do you overcommit yourself? I'm going to raise my hand for all the ones that are true for me, just so you don't think that I live some sort of perfect life that is all put together, because I definitely do not have it all together. So overcommit. Yep. I'm right there with you. Do I feel pressure when I'm happen to be hosting an event? Oh my goodness, just a little bit, because what gets in the way? Perfectionism. And I am a recovering perfectionist. However, that definitely can get in the way. People pleasing, anybody? I am mostly done with that. I am mostly done with that. Some of that comes with just age, and I may be a little bit older than y'all, but y'all don't have to do this people pleasing thing anymore. It doesn't mean that you don't continue to be nice. It just means that you don't have to fold and capitulate every time somebody needs you to do something for them or whatever. What about family drama? Any family drama? We don't have a lot. I'm really fortunate. I've worked through a lot of stuff with my kids and my ex-husband and all the people that are in my life. And I think that I have peace throughout most of my family. Most of the time, however, we're still human, right? So that's not always perfect. What about travel? Yeah, especially with the crazy schedules and the planes, trains, and automobiles, anything can go wrong, right? And so the last biggie is emotional eating. Well, I'm just an emotional eater. So we're going to talk about that message actually on my next episode a lot. We are going to rewrite our stories, but today we are really going to dive into cortisol, how it behaves, what it does to you, and what happens when we don't handle it well. And then near the end of the show, I'm also going to tell you 5 things, minimal, 5 things that you can do. I always go over. Uh, that you can do to really reduce your cortisol levels, get your vagus nerve back in order, get your central nervous system working for you, and you can live a much more peaceful life, right? So that we can really hang on to peace isn't passive, it's physiological and it's intentional, right? Peace isn't passive, it's physiological and it's intentional. So we are going to dive into that. So, how does cortisol behave differently? I'm going to talk about midlife. However, midlife cortisol started way back when. So, think about that for just a second. When weren't you stressed, right? Maybe you were stressed in college. Maybe you were stressed after college, your first job. Maybe you've had kids at times that you didn't expect to have them. Maybe you had kids when you expected to, and it was still stressful, right? Like life just can bring a lot of unexpected stresses and even happy things like getting married, moving to a new home that you're excited about. Any of those things can actually trigger our cortisol. And during midlife, when for women estrogen drops, this makes the stress response hit harder. So here's where we're going to start into some physiology and functional medicine. So the estrogen drop causes stress to hit harder. Estrogen actually helps you protect your body against stress and anxiety because it affects your neurotransmitters, right? Neurotransmitters are made in the brain. They help your brain communicate. They're also made in your gut. And yes, maybe more of them in your gut than actually in your brain. And the stuff in your gut ultimately can trigger stuff in your brain. Maybe not directly, but it works in that way. So estrogen can help to promote calmer neural pathways. And so when we pull that away, we lose that calming effect, right? And so we don't have that beautiful increase in serotonin, which helps to regulate our moods. Um, it doesn't suppress cortisol and adrenaline that speeds us up, right? Estrogen actually has some neuroprotective qualities like reducing inflammation and oxidative stress, which is like your brain on fire. It reduces those things. And so as our estrogen turns down in our ovaries, it doesn't always turn off completely, and our adrenals have to go to work. They've been producing a lot of cortisol through your life and the stresses, and now they're not necessarily capable of doing what they did before. So let's talk about long-term exposure to high cortisol levels. We're gonna dive into this a little bit, maybe deeper than you thought, but this is where we're going because I think it's important when you understand what's going on, it makes more sense that way, and then you also have a better reasons to like, oh, now that I understand what it's doing, I want to get rid of it and I want to do something about it, right? So high levels of cortisol actually cause insulin resistance, and if you don't understand insulin resistance, we talked about that a couple shows ago and on our last show. But when insulin rises, we store fat and we generally store it in all the places that we don't really want to store it, right? Like around our belly, which is also unhealthy. And sleep, which is a huge problem in general, right? Sleep becomes even more fragile. So, cortisol affects sleep because its job is to promote alertness and wakefulness, right? That is why when animals in the wild are being chased, their adrenaline and cortisol levels rise because they need to be super alert. Well, we don't want to be like that all the time. However, chronic overstimulation and chronic cortisol level, high cortisol levels will definitely interfere with sleep, right? It leads to insomnia. It makes it harder to fall back to sleep if you wake up. So you get this fragmented sleep. And anytime that you have high evening, nighttime cortisol levels, you're going to suppress the neurotransmitter that makes you sleepier called melatonin, right? And your arousal is up. So then poor sleep in and of itself elevates cortisol levels, right? And it just creates even more cycling of stress, cycling of sleep deprivation. So chronic stress, chronic high cortisol levels create chronic hormonal chaos. That is the best way to put this. So just know that you are not failing, right? However, your physiology is stuck in survival mode. You're not failing. Your physiology is stuck in survival mode. You're just trying to get through your day. And honestly, your brain does not know the difference between actual stress, right? You're being chased by a tiger, your boss wants something due yesterday and you thought it was due next week. Maybe that happens to me in seminary, right? Professors want me to get stuff done and I am behind, whatever that might be. But your brain can't tell the difference between real danger from constant overwhelm. And so stress becomes this baseline. It doesn't just become an event that we can rise and fall and get through. And what are the ways that we might recognize that? Belly fat, we talked about. Sugar cravings, because when we increase cortisol, our body pumps out sugar from our liver, but then when it drops, we want to have more. What about some midday crashes, 10 to 2 or 2 to 4? We get wired at night. We just talked about that. Maybe you just don't have motivation that you had before. You just can't quite talk yourself into doing the things that you used to be able to talk yourself into doing, right? Maybe some hot flashes, cold sweats, whatever those things are. And maybe you're just irritable. So in functional medicine, we talk about adrenal adaptation and adrenal fatigue, adrenal dysregulation, right? That's just such a nice word these days. We talk about emotional dysregulation. It's such a nice way of putting things. So when cortisol goes up at the wrong time, right? That is what creates this problem. And basically, I'm going to talk about the 4-phase stress curve. It is alarm, resistance, adaptation, and exhaustion, right? This is Hans Selye's work from decades and decades ago, and it is still important today. So, initially, an alarm response, right? We have something super stressful, and then we handle it and it goes away, right? But in that moment, we get an increased heart rate, our breathing goes up, we have heightened senses, and we get this really big surge of energy. And that is fine. That is our fight and flight. And then we can take a few breaths and come down, and then we go back to our normal low stress baseline. However, when our body tries to repair itself over time, resistance stage can kick in. And instead of it being able to repair itself and lowering the heart rate and blood pressure, it stays alert. And so you just get this ongoing sense of alertness, and you're just trying to cope with whatever these ongoing stressors are. And then our body is just like, oh, well, this must just be the way it is. And that's called adaptation. And so now we just think that this higher stress level, secreting all of these stress hormones all the time, is normal, right? And that's when the fatigue sets in. If you actually listen to your body, that's when irritability kicks in. That's when you get brain fog, right? You can't concentrate. You can't pull words. You can't get your reports done or whatever that is. You're not interacting with humans in a regular way. You can't remember your best friend's name, right? And the poor sleep stuff starts to kick in. And then you land in exhaustion. And this really occurs when your body's resources are completely depleted from this prolonged exposure to stress. I usually see this on labs in the forms of different vitamin deficiencies we can ferret out, and we can look at sodium potassium ratios and some of those things to key us into where our adrenals are. We can also do some testing around adrenals. That's a different show. I use the Dutch test. Different show, different day. Anyway, when the body's ability to fight the stress is actually compromised, we start to break down physically and mentally. Severe fatigue, burnout, depression, anxiety, weakened immune system, right? So now you're getting sick all the time, and that creates its own set of stressors. So how do we kind of fix this, and how else does cortisol disrupt our metabolism? So it can actually raise your blood sugar even if you're eating clean, right? If you're tired, your blood sugar regulation is going to be off the chain, absolutely off. Causes increased insulin resistance, right? That makes fat loss almost impossible. And it also creates a whole bunch of those issues that we talked about a couple of episodes ago. It actually affects thyroid function, right? The T4, which is your most big thyroid hormone that your thyroid produces, can't shift to T3, which is the active form. Chronic stress really dysregulates your thyroid. Uh, it can mess with all of your other hormones as well, including progesterone. And it can create inflammation, not just brain inflammation, but joint pain. Maybe you're getting migraines. Maybe you're bloated all the time. You have some gut dysregulation, right? Because your gut is dysregulated, cortisol slows down motility. So then you end up constipated, or it's manifesting in some kind of urgency. We're not going to talk about that on the show. It can kill off all of your good bacteria, your beneficial bacteria. It can increase permeability. Leaky gut, yes, leaky gut can be caused by cortisol, and it can make your food sensitivities worse because of the impact on your immune system and because of the increased leaky gut, right? This is just the downward spiral. So we just don't have the cortisol buffers from the estrogen. We are recovering slowly. Our sleep or lack of sleep, right, just makes everything worse. Add in some relational stress because you have aging parents, adult kids, church roles, marriage fatigue, all of the pieces of relational stress that can pop in, and you're already more irritable, right? And now let's throw on the holidays, right? This is just basically a cortisol buffet. All right. So, how are we going to handle this? How are we going to handle this? We are going to handle this in several different ways. We're going to talk about faith first, but then we're going to get into some nitty-gritty stuff in just a couple minutes here. Because here's the thing. Stress thinking becomes habit thinking. And God did not design us to live in a chronic, stressed out, chronic alarm mode. That is not what this is about. That is not what God designed us for, right? He designed us for love and peace and gentleness and kindness and all the fruits of the Spirit that come from Him. He's not expecting us to live in this way. So we're kind of leaning into this Romans 12 to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So stress actually creates ruts, right? Stress grooves in your brain. The good news is they can be rewired. And we are going to talk about that today and a lot more next week, even. So peace can become a discipline, and it can become intentional, and it is a choice, and it will shift your physiology. So we're going to talk about how we can steward our bodies through how we think, not just how we eat. Eating makes a difference too, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But we are going to steward our bodies through the way that we think and then the way that we eat, because we can actually really start to shift all of those pieces, right? So, the vagus nerve gets involved in this. I know the vagus nerve is a really big kind of hot topic right now. Just understand this, that as you have chronic stress, your vagus nerve can't keep up anymore and it shuts down. So we need to start to stimulate our and strengthen our vagus nerve. We need to stimulate and strengthen our vagus nerve. And we can do that. And we're going to start here with some deep breathing, right? We're going to inhale slowly through our nose. We're going to allow our abdomen. We're not just going to breathe from our shoulders, and we are going to exhale through our mouth, right? Prolonged exhalations are really good at stimulating the vagus nerve and triggering a relaxation response. 3 deep breaths with a nice sigh at the end, right? That's awesome. When we sing, we actually can stimulate the vagus nerve at the back of our throat. I know. So start singing some happy songs. How would that be? All right. Laughing. We all need to laugh more. And I know that when we are feeling stressed out, laughter is kind of the last thing that we are thinking of, right? That is the last thing that we really want to do. But add something like a funny movie or a comedy show or a comedian that you just love. Find time with friends where you can just watch a funny movie and laugh and relax for a little while. Think about some mindfulness and some meditation on scripture. Yes, I am a big proponent of yoga. I believe that when we can do the yoga poses and pull in the Holy Spirit during that time, we can commune with God in a way that maybe you're not communing on the regular, because you are lacking all of the other distractions, right? When you are doing yoga. So I am a big yoga fan, and that can help calm your nervous system and improve your vagal tone is what it's called. It's your vagal strength. In terms of gut health, your gut bacteria make good neurotransmitters that can influence the vagus nerve positively or negatively. So let's support healthy gut with healthy food. And we talked a little bit about that. You can take some probiotics, yes. However, an anti-inflammatory diet with higher levels of protein and healthy fats will also do that. Add some bone broth to your day every single day. That's great. I have a gut protocol for most of my clients that works amazing to really help clean up gut health. The first place we need to start is with breakfast. We talked about this on my last episode. But if you can start your day with protein, I mean protein before the fire starter habits, right? Protein before coffee, protein before caffeine. So let's think about that, right? Let's think about protein before caffeine. So maybe you can grab a quick glass of water and put your collagen in there and down that before you go and drink your coffee. Limit the sugar that's in your coffee. That will also help your blood sugar stay more stable. Adding some fat to that. Maybe you're going to take a little teaspoon of your fish oil or some olive oil or throw some grass-fed butter into that coffee. So starting your day in that way can really make a difference in order to just start your day in a calmer place. So then maybe as you're drinking your coffee, you can think about breathing for a moment, or maybe even before you get out of bed, you can breathe and pray and maybe meditate on a piece of scripture, maybe even Romans 12:2, right? And this will start your vagus nerve in a way better place than normal. Guard your sleep. Number one, guard your sleep. You deserve to go to bed at a reasonable hour. Couple hours before, let's turn the lights down in the house, maybe just one lamp, and maybe light a candle that you like or something like that. 30 minutes before, make sure your thermostat goes down below 68. And no doom scrolling, right? Get out of the phone thing before you go to bed. Pick up a magazine, find a book, whatever that means, but let's not do any more doom scrolling right before bed. Get your bed comfy. Maybe you want to have your sound machine going or something like that. So guard your sleep. And hey, y'all, if any of this resonates with you today, the overwhelm, the wired and tired at night, craving, you're frustrated, you feel like your body's failing you, it's really not. It is communicating with you. And I just want to thank you for spending time with me today. I am cheering you on through your transformation, through renewed health, rooted in truth, and restored by grace. I will see you next week, and it is going to be a heartfelt episode. And I am so excited about all of that. Thanks, y'all. Love you. You've been listening to Spark Faith with me, Dr. Kris Sargent. This show is about renewed health, rooted in truth, and restored by grace. Tune in every Thursday morning at 9:30 a.m. Pacific on the Transformation Talk Radio for more simple, faith-fueled steps to live the vision God placed in your heart. Are you ready to take the next step? Schedule a discovery call or connect with me at drkrissargent.com. That's DRKRIS Sargent.com. While you're there, download my free ebook, Endless Energy, the 6 non-negotiable keys to endless energy, and sign up for an upcoming masterclass. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share the show, and I'd love to connect with you on social media at Dr. Kris Sargent. Let's keep sparking faith and transformation together. Can't wait to see y'all next time.